The Zodiac Killer, a serial killer that has never been caught for decades. Prepare to enter the dark and twisted mind of one of the most infamous serial killers in American history, the Zodiac Killer. With a taunting letter to the Bay Area press and a string of brutal murders, the Zodiac has remained a mystery for decades, his identity and motives still shrouded in secrecy. Join me as we delve into the details of this unsolved case, exploring the gruesome methods used by the Zodiac to claim his victims and examining the clues that have confounded investigators for years, from the cryptic messages left by the killer to the latest developments in the investigation. We'll leave no stone unturned in our quest for the truth, so sit back, buckle up, and prepare for a chilling ride through the mind of a serial killer. Welcome to AF Crime, the channel that brings you fascinating crimes all around the world. If you're interested in this kind of content, then this channel is for you. Make sure to like this video, click on the subscribe button, and turn on the notification bell to keep you updated on our recent uploads. Now, let's get right into the video and investigate the crime scene of the Zodiac Killer. The Zodiac Killer was a serial killer who operated in Northern California in the late 1960s and early 1970s. He actually gave himself the title Zodiac in the cryptic letters he sent to the press during his murder spree. His first victims were David Faraday, 17 years old, and Betty Lou Jensen, 16 years old, when this young couple went out on their first date on the night of December 20th, 1968. Earlier that evening, David and Betty Lou had promised Mr. and Mrs. Jensen that they would return by 11 p.m., but witnesses had seen the couple sitting on Lake Herman as late as 11:10 p.m. By the time they were found, David Faraday was dying from a gunshot wound to his head, and Betty Lou was dead, approximately 8.5 meters away from the car, and had been shot 5 times from the back. It was deduced that another car had pulled up and parked next to the high school students, and that is the first known case of the Zodiac Killer. A few months later, on July 4th, 1969, a very similar scenario had happened when a gunman pulled his car in another secluded area, but this time it was the park of Blue Rock Springs Golf Course, just a few miles away from the first crime scene. The victims this time were a little older. Michael Mageau was a 19-year-old, and his girlfriend Darlene Ferrin was 22. The killer got out of his car and points a flashlight at the couple so they couldn't see him. At first, they thought that he was a police officer, so they got out their IDs as he approached towards them. However, as soon as he reached the driver's window, he started shooting. He fired 5 shots inside the car and just quickly returned into his car. Unfortunately, he heard Michael moaning out of the pain and realized he was still alive, so he went back and shot 2 times at each body before leaving the crime scene. And less than an hour later, police received a phone call that had been traced on a phone booth just a few blocks away from the station. And the man on the line said, "I wish to report a double murder. If one of you will go to Mile East on Columbus Parkway to a public park, you will find the kids in a brown car. They have been shot by a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye." Apparently, the police were already aware of the shooting because of the few teenagers who reported minutes after the killer had fled. Thus, it saved Michael Mageau's life. Darlene Ferrin, however, was pronounced dead. Michael survived and talked about the killer as he didn't turn the flashlight on the second time he shot them. He described the killer as a white male, adult, around 5 feet 8 inches tall. He's either in his late 30s or early 40s with a round face and walks with a limp. In less than a month after the crime scene, it didn't last long before the killer had made it move, but this time, he didn't kill people. Instead, he reached out to the media and introduced himself as the Zodiac on August 1st, 1969. This time, he sent a 408 symbol cryptogram that he later on says that if they cracked the code, the police would be able to identify the killer's identity. The killer also demanded that the cryptogram should be printed in the first section of the newspaper. Otherwise, he will go on killing a dozen people over the weekend. On August 4th, another letter had come to the press that started with the phrase, "This is the Zodiac speaking," and a symbol that is believed to be designed by him, which is a circle that has a cross in it. On August 8th, 1969, the cryptogram code was cracked by a couple in California, stating that, "I like killing people because it's fun. It is more than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all. Something that gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it is that when I die, I will be reborn in paradise, and those I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name because you will try to slow down or stop my collecting of slaves for the afterlife." Geesh, how could killing somebody bring you to paradise? This man is totally nuts, but certainly not dumb, as he is still not caught or known personally by everyone, right? On September 27, 1969, at Lake Berryessa, Napa, California, a couple named Cecilia Shepard, ages 22, and Brian Hartnell, who is 28 years old at that time, were enjoying a picnic at the shore of Lake Berryessa. Not until Cecilia saw a man hiding behind a nearby tree and staring directly at her. After some time, the man hiding behind the tree came out wearing an executioner mask with the Zodiac Killer sign on the lower part of it. This time, the murderer had changed his modus operandi. Instead of shooting the couple, he made Cecilia tie up Brian before tying her up. The killer then drew a knife and stabbed them both repeatedly. Miraculously, Brian managed to survive despite being stabbed 8 times in the back. Cecilia wasn't so lucky. She died at the hospital. The final and last confirmed Zodiac victim was a taxi driver named Paul Stine. The poor cab driver was shot in the head by the passenger. 3 days after Paul Stine's murder, the San Francisco Chronicle received a letter from the Zodiac claiming he is responsible for the crime. At the end of the letter, the killer suggested that he was going to shoot a tire of a school bus and pick off the kiddies as they come bouncing out. Going back, there was not enough technology that could help the police identify the Zodiac Killer, despite the 2 victims who survived, giving the police plenty of evidence to go on. There is still no progress for the case. While on the other hand, the killer did not exactly hide from the spotlight. He even sent 18 letters to both newspaper and private citizens during his murder spree, but to no avail. He still hasn't been caught up to this date. In March 2004, the police marked the case as inactive, then reopened it again in 2008. Unfortunately, there was still no progress. Inspired by the success of the DNA investigation in the decades-old Golden State Killer case, the police of California renewed their investigation efforts at the end of 2018. They say that the DNA technology has finally evolved enough to give the police and the victim's family a new hope. Decades have passed since his murder spree, and decades of investigation and advances in forensic sciences has produced evidence which authorities believe could be used to identify the Zodiac. There were only 5 victims known to the police, but to their surprise, the Zodiac claimed to have murdered 37 victims. He has been linked to several old cold cases. Some are even outside of the state. Of the 4 ciphers he produced, 2 remain unsolved. One was cracked on August 1969, while the other one was solved only in 2020. While many theories regarding the identity of the killer have been suggested, the only suspect authorities ever publicly named was Arthur Lee Allen, a former elementary school teacher and convicted sex offender who died in 1992. But in 2010, Dave Toshi stated that all the evidence against Allen turned out to be negative. Thus, there is still no potential suspect for the infamous Zodiac Killer. The Zodiac remains the most elusive and terrifying ghost in the history of American serial murder. While some believe that the killer died long ago or is locked away somewhere in prison cell, others believe that he is still out there, watching the world keep his story alive, enjoying his infamy, and waiting to write an ending as shocking as his unforgettable crime. Well, if you feel that this case was an intriguing one, like this video and share it with all your friends. Also, subscribe to our AF Crime channel for finding more shocking tales around the world. And if you have any criminal case that you'd like me to investigate, share it in the comment section below.